It's no secret that in recent years, the Premier League has become one of the most exciting and competitive leagues in world football. And with so much parity between the top sides, it often comes down to the finer details that makes the difference between success and failure. In this series, we look at what we can learn from some of the standout performances in the Premier League each week. And today we'll be looking at what we learned from Pelle Larsson's incredible performance against Tottenham Hotspur. Alright, so let's get into it. So from the first whistle, the home side came out with an aggressive high press, and they looked to force the away side into making mistakes. And if you've been watching our channel for a while now, you'll know how much we love a good pressing side. So we were really excited to see this. And the way that they pressed was also really interesting, because they weren't just looking to press in the traditional way. You often see teams press in their own half, and then once the ball gets into the final third, they stop pressing and they sit back. But what was really interesting here is that they actually pressed all over the pitch. If the ball got into the final third, they still pressed and they forced the Spurs players into some really uncomfortable situations. One thing that really stood out about their pressing was the bravery to go man to man. They didn't just press in a shape. Every single player had a man that they were marking, and they followed those players wherever they went. And this caused all sorts of problems for the away side, because they couldn't find any passing options in the middle of the park. And when they did find those passing options, it was usually with their back to goal or in really tight spaces. But there was one thing that they did that we haven't seen many teams do this season, and that's exactly what we're going to move on to next. So one of the biggest problems that teams have had against the top six this season is breaking through the lines with any sort of regularity. But what we saw from Pelle Larsson was something different. He wasn't trying to dribble past players or take players on. Instead, he looked to exploit the space behind the fullbacks. And every time he got the ball in the final third, he would check his shoulder to see if he had the support. And if he did, he would then play that pass into the feet of his teammate, who would then either shoot or cross the ball into the box. And the reason why this was so effective is because Pelle Larsson is such a good progressive passer. He doesn't just look to send the ball forward aimlessly. He looks to send the ball into feet that can then cause problems. And this is exactly what happened for the first goal. It was a brilliant pass from Pelle Larsson into the feet of James Maddison, who then took a touch and slotted the ball into the bottom corner. And it was the same again for the second goal. But this time it was Kaoru Mitoma who was at the end of that pass, and he smashed the ball into the roof of the net. But it wasn't just his passing range that was impressive. His delivery into the box was also really good. For the opening goal, he whipped in a fantastic cross which was begging to be attacked, and he could have easily had another assist if Evan Ferguson had done better with his header. And later on in the game, he hit the post with a wonderful free kick. But it wasn't just an attack where he impressed. He actually dropped deep to help his team out defensively as well. And he won the ball back in dangerous areas on numerous occasions. The only downside to his performance was his inability to score himself. He had a couple of chances in the first half where he could have easily scored, but he dragged his effort just wide of the post. But as cliché as it sounds, it was a case of the team winning being the most important thing for him. Now, this is one of the things that we've noticed with these standout performers, is that more often than not, they play four teams that are in a relegation battle. And this makes sense. If your team is fighting for its life, then you need every single player to be performing at their very best. Whereas if you're playing for a team that's already qualified for Europe, or even playing for a team that's challenging for the title, then there's a bit more leeway for individual players to have off days. And if you look at the stats of the Seagulls this season, you can start to see why Pelle has been putting in these big performances. They're ranked 16th in the league for possession, 17th for shots, 18th for goals scored, 19th for key passes, and 20th for expected goals. And if you're struggling to create chances and score goals, then you need your fullbacks to be more than just fullbacks. They need to be able to contribute going forward. And that's exactly what Pelle Larsson has been doing. He currently leads a team for key passes, and he's second for both assists and chances created. And it's easy to see why he's been putting in these big performances. The team isn't playing for anything other than survival right now. And if they're going to survive, then they need him to put in big performances week in, week out. If you don't know too much about the Seagulls, and you're wondering why they're in a relegation battle, then you've come to the right place. So let's start at the beginning. Roberto De Zerbi took over a team that was in the relegation zone and managed to get them to the safety of mid-table. And last season, They lost their star player in Alexis McAllister and their talismanic captain in Lewis Dunk. And although they did bring in some replacements, it wasn't quite the same, and they found themselves in a relegation battle once again. And this is where the main issue lies. They've struggled to be consistent. If you look at their points tally, you'll see that they've gone on little runs of picking up points, but then they've had spells where they just completely fall apart. And these spells have come against teams that they probably should be beating. For example, in December, they drew against West Ham, lost against Newcastle, and then got beat by Arsenal, and they were all at home. And then the same thing happened again in March. They drew against Nottingham Forest, got beat by Aston Villa, and then lost against Manchester City. Again, they were all at home. And when you compare that to the teams around them, you can see why they're in the position that they're in. Everton have picked up 13 points from their last 5 games. Nottingham Forest have picked up 10 points from their last 5 games. And even Leicester, who are in the bottom 3, have picked up 10 points from their last 5 games as well. But the Seagulls do have an advantage over these teams. They have one of the best goalkeepers in the league in Jason Steele. He's made some incredible saves for them this season, and he's given them a chance of winning pretty much every single game. In fact, if it wasn't for him, they would be in real trouble. At the moment, they're 4 points clear of the drop zone with only 2 games left to play, and they're facing 2 of the hardest teams in the league in Manchester United, and then and they will need another big performance from Pelle Larsson if they are to pick up any points. If they do manage to survive, then it'll be a good bit of business from the club, and if they don't survive, then it still wouldn't be the worst bit of business. Larsson joined the club on a free transfer after his contract at Club Brugge expired last summer, and despite having a slow start to life in the Premier League, he's really kicked on in recent months. In his last 12 appearances, he's provided for assists, and he's had a direct hand in 7 of the team's last 11 goals. And that's why there's already interest in him from both Borussia Dortmund and Atletico Madrid. His current contract expires in 2025, so they're not under any pressure to sell him this summer. But if they do get relegated, then they may have to cash in on him to balance the books. But that's a problem for another day. Right now, their focus will purely be on getting as many points on the board as possible to secure their Premier League status. And they'll need another big performance from Pelle Larsson if they're going to do that. So there you have it. That's what we learned from Pellerson's incredible performance against Tottenham. What do you think of Pellerson? And do you think he can help the Seagulls stay in the Premier League? Let us know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and you can watch this video again by clicking here. Cheers for watching.